Yeah. So hello everybody. We are going to start the last session of the summer school from the TrustEat project. Sorry for those who had some problems with the link. We have here with us Marieke de Ruyter de Wildt. Sorry if I mispronounced it.
That's good enough.
Okay, and we have as well Fiona Delaney that were so kind to a set of invitation for presenting in this summer school. And I'm really thrilled to have both of them here. I really admire both of you guys. So for me, it's fantastic that to have the opportunity to have you here. There is a small change on the program, so it will be Marieke that will be starting. And then we will have Fiona. Just for you to know, we are recording the session, so if anybody has some problem with it, please let us know. Yeah, without any delay, I will give the floor to Marieke. Okay.
Excellent. Okay. You do see my screen, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, perfectly.
And that's on full screen now. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Marieke. I'm from the Netherlands, and we are based in Amsterdam. We started our blockchain venture in 2016 when we got very enthused and thrilled on the potential of blockchain for food. So I started a new fork, which is a company also here in Amsterdam in 2017. And the vision first was to use existing protocols and bring them to food. So existing protocols like IBM's Food Trust, a lot of the protocols that run on Ethereum. And 1.5 years later, we realized that the existing protocols aren't very suitable for food, basically because of 3 reasons. But the key one and the very obvious one, and I'm very keen to get some discussion, maybe with Fiona on this, because I think it's important to understand how technology can work or can't work for food. But a key inhibitor has been the costs of software. So we started to build our own protocol in 2020. And last year, we started the Open Food Chain Foundation. And what is very likely, and this is also news still for Fiona, that everything will merge into the Open Food Chain Foundation, as we really believe that the organizational structure should be very light and lean, and everything should happen on the technology itself. So although you might see me as the new fork, we are actually converting into Open Food Chain fully. Why would you need traceability? And I think this is something that you covered in the past couple of days. So I'm just gonna flip through the presentation very rapidly and quickly. Do shout out if you have an immediate question, right? It's nice to have some interaction. But then the purpose really is to be here to elaborate on the things that you think are interesting and the questions that you have in your head. So the reason why you want to have traceability is that for consumers, it's become the Wild West, right? So you have no idea what the packages are communicating to you, and it's very difficult to know what you are actually eating. And the incidences of false, fake food are on the rise. So that's one reason. Now, another reason is this. This is a Dutch farmer, a potato farmer. And this is them doing the certification preparation. So you definitely want to digitize this, and you want to make this administration immutable. So that's the key reason, right? So we have 2 audiences for, I think, for traceability at large. It is consumers and it is B2B supply chain. Now, how we do it is we have 2 examples. One is the blockchain burger, and the other one is Juicy Chain. Now, the blockchain burger works as follows. So you see here a hamburger with 9 ingredients. And each producer that delivered to this batch of hamburger, they put their information on the blockchain and they do it themselves. So here we have the meat patty. which was produced actually by naturally dyed animals from the Dutch Greenland. So we do have some nature left in the Netherlands. It's not a lot. And there are some animals, and these burgers were made from that meat. So you see the story of the producer. And here you see next to the normal information, like proteins and carbs, you see food miles and CO2 emissions, because we think that is something that is increasingly of interest to consumers. And here you see the reference to the recipe or the ingredients. So you can be assured that the transaction has been verified. And that is equally so for all the other 8 ingredients. So the story of the producer, similar information. And this is something that, you agree with each other. What is the information that you want to communicate? And then you standardize the way of data definitions. And then this is where you get, in this case, the blockchain burger. Now, another example that we have is Juicy Chain, and Juicy Chain is more complex. Juicy Chain involves the whole supply chain. So in the blockchain burger case, it's a very simple supply chain where you have producers delivering ingredients straight to the chef who makes a hamburger. Now, in the case of Juicy Chain, we have the whole supply chain. So we have the bottler, the processors, and the retailers. And what is very new to our model that I will definitely explain in more detail later on, is that we do this from also satellite foundations. These foundations are headed by the leaders of the industry. So you see here Refresco and Ex Granini, and there's an NGO that sits as a monitoring part in the board. And they actually they invest in the application of open food chain in juice. They pay for the building and the maintenance, and then each company can join on their own accounts. And they can do that without any costs attached to that. Now, on the consumer experience, you will get a bottle of juice with a QR code. You enter these unique identifiers of this bottle. And then you come into this journey, the journey of the juice. You see where it comes from. In this case, it's an apple juice where the apples come from Poland and it's bottled in Germany. You can see all companies that have been working on that particular supply chain. So there's Austria Juice that is a producer based in Austria. They work with Citrusuco. And you see the story of that particular producer here. Now, each of the companies, and this is particular on about blockchain, they upload their own proofs or evidences. So in this case, the emphasis has been put on certificates, sustainability certificates. So they have 3 certificates that apply to the particular juice hoops. They have 5. And they upload it themselves to the blockchain. This goes through an interface that the quality department has. Same for the bottler, where Refresco tells their story again, and they have their certificates uploaded here. Now, that is Juicy Chain. And to date, we have 50 different partners that are standing in line to get onboarded. 10 of them are actively onboarded, and the other 40 will be onboarded in the next couple of weeks. It's large companies, right? It's companies like Refresco, like Louis Dreyfus Company, Citrusuco. And that is also, it's really part of our strategy to work with the biggest leaders of the industry, because if they start an initiative like this, the others will follow. Now, on the what then happens on the backside, or if you make things a bit more visual, this is a typical agri-food supply chain, and this is a typical supply chain in general, where data doesn't travel, data is not connected, and you can only look a little bit backwards and a little bit forwards. Now, with a network technology like blockchain, and I really emphasize you can also do parts of this with different technologies, then you get a shared infrastructure. And each party here they publish information to that shared infrastructure. And you can do two things. So either you put the whole document there, as in the case of Juicy Chain, or you can put a reference to the document there. And what you can imagine there is that you put a little box on a public, in a public environment, and everybody can see the box, but they can't see what's in the box. So if you speak about volumes, origin, or some of the information that is competitively sensitive, then you can very well hide and not show that information. And in the end, then you do get a very complete product passport. Now, what is different about our technology compared to most other, I would say, traceability systems, and definitely public or blockchain system, is that we actually have a public blockchain infrastructure. And we wanted to develop 3 USPs. So one on interoperability. And this then boils down to having a public layer 1 infrastructure. The second one is, as I'm in agri-food for 20 years, it needs to be farmer friendly. So farmers need to be able to join without any costs and with very easy interfaces. And the third one is costs in general, because software is expensive. And this is expensive. And it's not only an economic argument, but it's also a philosophical argument. We believe in a world where software needs to be supportive to the real world. So the business model should not be in the software. The business model should be in the apples. So we developed a cost structure where we have no transaction costs. So you can track and trace as many volumes or as large as volumes as you want. And your bill will be the same in the end of the day. And I think this is, although we're also innovating on the technology, we definitely want to, disrupt the software industry and develop software with a very different business model. Now, that then boils down into the governance of Open Food Chain. So as I already mentioned, Open Food Chain is a foundation. And how we envision things is that we build a backend, you call this in software development. So we build an infrastructure, and that building is shared between the different clients of Open Food Chain. So there's Juicy Chain, there's Chef Chain. The blockchain burger is launched from Chef Chain. We started with Titan in olive oil and in fish, and we're bound to kick off in cacao at the end of this year or early next year. And we identified 33 industries altogether, where we think there's a good opportunity to launch this infrastructure. And on the back end, we will have other solutions like Fiona's. And we strongly believe in a world where you have a variety of solutions that work in conjunction with each other. Now, our ambition is very simple. We want to upload or unload, or no, not unload, but upload 10% of the agri-food system. So 10% of the total system, because there's another set of theory and insights where if you have 10% in a movement of change, that is enough to flip the practice, to really get a different way of working. So this is actually all I wanted to share for now. You can call me, you can email me, you can visit us. We are again in Amsterdam at Startup Village. And yeah, I'm keen to hear where your questions are. And also Fiona, if you want to respond to this, maybe that's interesting as well, right? To see how somebody from a very similar background responds to this might add value.
Thank you very much, Marieke. Anybody has a comment or question in the audience? Yes, Pedro?
Thank you for the presentation. It was quite nice. My main question is regarding what type of data do you present to your consumers? Is tracking data or quality data, origin data?
Yeah, so in the case of so that's this data, right? So in the case of juicy, oh, I'm zooming in on Poland. That's not exactly what I wanted. So in the case of juicy chain, it is the origin and it is the certificates that apply to your juice. And in the case of the blockchain burger, it is about nutrients, the story of the farmer, and CO2 or sustainability indicators. So that will depend on each application. And in, for example, in cacao, the focus will be on deforestation free, right? Farms that want to indicate that they produce their cacao in sustainable or ESG free risk manner. In olive oil, it's about origin. So you want to indicate that your olive oil is 100% olive oil. So the what you communicate differs a bit per industry and per issues that are in the market.
Okay, so how do the farmers upload the data? Is it certificate based or do they have live sensors online?
Yes, so there's a great question. So what we are developing at the moment, so we haven't developed this yet, is a technology where farmers can upload information from their phones. So they won't need any, they can use a mobile device and upload the data from there to make it as easy as possible. And for now, they do it from their farm management systems.
So for example, to prove that it's 100% olive oil, they have to run the test and then they manually upload the data through the app, for example.
Yeah, yeah. Or for
Okay.
now, they can just say, and this is the beauty of blockchain, right? So particularly of a public blockchain infrastructure. So how it works is that you put a claim on a network. And by you doing that, you say, I do this claim, and you can come and check if this claim is correct. That's how it works in practice, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pedro, and thank you, Marieke. Anybody else has any question or comment? I do have a question or a comment myself. I like it a lot where you were mentioning about the business model and the importance of the cost of the software, because as you mentioned, actually the business model should be the Apple or the product itself. So it has to be added value, but it cannot be the main cause of food industry, particularly when we are thinking, and I think this was really, this is really important as you mentioned, when we think about the food industry, the gain, the benefit that they can get is very low, no? Because it's food products, so they have their own expenses and so on. And I was wondering, because you were mentioning about the juicy chains that you managed to involve the large company, and I think this is very important because then the rest will follow, this trend. What is your experience with engaging small companies? I mean, what I mean is, what is the how to say the point of view? Because most of the companies in Europe are SMEs and so on. For example, in my region, that is quite rural, let's say, many are led by older people that maybe are not so aware of how this works and so on. What is your experience? Yes.
So my experience has been that before entering into blockchain, I was the director of a software company where we digitized compliance processes on the farm. And it's not only that they are uncomfortable with complicated software, but they don't trust the digital, they don't trust Web 2, right? So they prefer to have stuff that they can see on their table and where they can, I would say, where they have a good level of sort of practical control. So that is actually also the reason why we started with the big companies in the middle, so not really retailers, because we don't see them as agents of change, but we do see them, the big companies who are either brands or significant companies like Refresco, in the food industry, because they struggle with their supply chains, right? They have the same problem that we have. They want more transparency in their supply chain, and they want a stronger, I would say, they want a stronger say on what they want to show to the end consumer, and the retailers is in between them and the end consumer. So we really were looking for companies that can make the change. And then when they start doing that, farmers will come along. But to start from farm level on is a no-go. It's an ideology that will never take off. Farmers will do it if they need to.
I have I guess an addendum to that. I completely agree and really admire what Marieke and the Open Food Chain Foundation are achieving here. It's a very broad and systems approach. Something I'll step into a little bit later when I get to my presentation is that we have taken a very ecosystem approach to innovating in this space. I have my own company. There are a number of other. We take this very point about SMEs and small businesses, and that's where we started. So the problems are the same in exactly how Marieke is describing them, but we're approaching it from a different way. And I think when we consider the complexity of supply chains in general, or even this concept of farm to fork, which doesn't even include circularity really. Um, these broad concepts are ways of ways of abstracting complexity, and there are many ways and many different approaches. Um, that for sure we will be iterating for many years, I think, in terms of bringing technology to the physical reality of business in the food chain. Um, so just on that point about SMEs, uh, I don't agree that the farmer will never be the first mover. What I would agree on is that all farmers, that idea of ubiquity is maybe not the best way forward. So we take a very kind of lean business approach, find early adopters. We're working with dairy farmers in Ireland and wine producers in the Catalonia region, and we are looking for artisan brands, very already highly engaged with the capacities of technology, digital marketing, maybe influencer um, roles, that kind of thing, to reach and expand into the marketplace, a global export market. And we help them to find new products, database products and services that add value for them. And we understand that if we can add value in one market, that is something that can be replicated, particularly if we're talking about collectible produce like wine can be. And we think if we can crack a couple of problems in the Catalonian region, that will have a knock-on effect to the global wine producing communities, Napa Valley, Australia, the New World kind of wines. And we've partnered with, and this is the business side. We are working with very experimental, innovative thinkers in the Catalonia region. And I would say my experience, I would love to say that in Ireland, the dairy farming community here has a similar kind of openness, but it doesn't. That's the reality. And so for me, it's very interesting to bring those dairy farmers side by side, even in virtual communities, to see how the Catalonian producers are moving forward. They experience those same problems: demographics, lack of internet connection, lack of experience and understanding about what digital transformation means realistically for them, and to do that in parallel. So we took a very radical open innovation approach, um, which finds a common issue, I don't want to go too much into it because this is actually the question and answer of Marieka's thing. So I just want to say that we took that SME approach, and it is a little bit different to that systems thinking approach. I think there's a lot that we can share and learn together, and I would love to be able to maybe include some information about your juicy chain and your blockchain burger as a kind of case study in the information sharing that we're doing on our side of things, because I really do think that sharing of insights, sharing what's, innovation forays into the real market, that's where we can start to accelerate understanding and learning across that whole spectrum of the food value chain. So yeah, it's really great, Marieke. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think,
Pedro.
yeah, Pedro.
Yes, thank you. I have another question. This works very fine for packaged foods and processed foods.
Yeah.
For fruit, how would it work? Because I just went to check in my kitchen, and I have oranges that have no label. Some of the bananas, like two of them on a group of five, have a label, and most of them, like the label
Yeah.
is kind of worn off, so a QR code wouldn't be
Yes.
readable.
Yeah.
How will
Yeah.
you approach that regarding sustainability, though, not increasing packaging?
No, exactly. Yes. So there are two. If you see food on the spectrum, right? There's on one hand the products that have no packaging, so the single products without packaging, and on the other hand you have the commodities, right? And that's where it's equally, if not more challenging. So on the fixed products, single products, there are technologies like DNA imprinting and very high tech technologies, but that doesn't pay the bill. So for now, it's too expensive. So I think we just have to live with the not ideal situation where, for example, your point of purchase could have their certificate or some access to that blockchain indicating that the origin is real and the information is correct. I think that's for the single products, right? And on the commodity part, we really need to move from a mass balance certification reality to really granular certification. And then in my worldview, certification is not where you have auditors coming to the companies and very expensive industry on itself, but where you would verify data that lives in a publicly verifiable infrastructure. That for me, that is certification, or yeah.
Thank you.
Does
So I
it answer
guess
your question?
yeah, kind of. In the first case, I guess you would have like where the price label is, you have a QR code that consumers can
Yeah,
scan while in the store. I think
exactly.
another suggestion would be like to print that same QR code in the bill where they pay, like where you have the description of every
Yeah,
item. That way you can do it at home and not waste
yeah.
that time in the supermarket, for example.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the reality is that most consumers won't do that. So
Yeah.
consumers will rely on NGOs checking that,
Yeah.
and journalists checking the story. And that is why having something open and public is important, because you show that you're open to verification, right? But consumers, as myself, we're lazy, right? We just want to have the good stuff, but I'm not going to spend hours and hours tracking and tracing. You do want to be able to trust brands and retailers. So that's where the responsibility lies as well.
So the
Uh,
goal will be eventually to have like a stamp, like for biological agriculture, but in this case for sustainable and etc. Have it like approved
Yeah,
as something. Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
yeah,
I,
exactly.
just to add to that, Pedro, I really like your idea of um, if the data is there, in the background, 100% since 2017, I think Marieke and myself have seen just how little the consumer actually cares to have that role of oversight. Certainly, technologically and data wise, there's a certain fascination. Oh, I can scan something and find out how much nitrogen was in the grass for the cow that produced this milk. I will do that once. I will never do that again. And that is an awful lot of infrastructure to build for a sort of a curiosity factor. However, Pedro, what you were saying there, if that information is available through oracleized systems, perhaps on public blockchains, that kind of thing, when I, as the consumer, get my bill and there's a QR code that I could scan that aggregates some sustainability measures and some nutrition measures that I can scan and at home and see from my bill, my total purchases this week, that would be a very interesting application. That is something that I, as a consumer, would be interested in, and I could see real value for that. Now, in the same way that we're very far away from this concept of ubiquitous computing and pervasive technology in our lives, but that suggestion that you had there, that would be a certain outcome that would have great utility, I think, week by week, that I could have a sort of a sustainability diet or an audit or an account for what I was purchasing. I think in a household that has real value, and I haven't really heard anybody suggest that before. So thank you for that. And then I think we see, so we kind of open up that idea of stakeholder analysis or even stakeholder engineering. Who are these systems for? What, who can bear the cost? The consumer's not interested to bear the cost. If the information is available and they can digest it in a super simple and useful way that is meaningful for them, I think that they will embrace that. We're nowhere near delivering on that yet. I think the blockchain burger is perhaps the most powerful example I've ever seen of something that is, if you could do that for every product in your basket at the end of the week, wouldn't that just be amazing? You can see, because the climate facet is one thing, but I'm a mom, I have children, I care about things like how much sugar they're eating, what kind of nutrition they have. I would really like to see that. And so that the blockchain burger is this amazing way of sharing the possibilities and the utility of that. So I think I certainly see us at the very beginning of kind of engineering stakeholder interests, what's even possible in the food value chain, and for whom is this information being made available. And I think when we're talking about the food value chain, common good factors, public health, public nutrition, the climate action through industry action, these are all desirable contexts or even enablers, like motivating factors, I think.
And in terms of, so maybe going back to the blockchain burger one more time. So that was really developed to inspire chefs, as we see chefs as the influencers of our thinking about food. And they have no idea what they have on the kitchen table. So either star chefs, and we know a few farmers that went and visit, and so really not one, but I know a few that went and visit the Michelin restaurants where their meat was supposed to be sold, and it wasn't sold, right? It wasn't their meat. So there's a lot of uncertainty for chefs. And we do think that there is much more for scaling opportunity, right? So if chefs start to adopt the need for the verification of origin, but definitely of nutrients, that would really be a good start. But then again, I mean, this is the conundrum that we have in food. Who are the real changes and where's the power? It's with the retailers, and they have no benefit in making food more complex. No benefit at all. So I think that's something that, in whatever space you are in food, it's very key to think of who are the critical change makers and try and get them moving.
Yeah. There was another point from in your presentation that you were mentioning the interoperability, and I think this is a very important point related to blockchain, because there could be, I mean, there are so many actors in the food value chains, and there could be so many different interaction or different, that's really important. I don't know if you.
And the thing, and this came from my previous experience with working with farmers who have to actually share their information with all the different retailers or the retail channels who all have different requirements. So this whole notion of single data input, multiple use is fantastic on paper, but it hasn't worked in practice. And that is what blockchain can bring, because if I, as a farmer, if I publish my data to an open public infrastructure, I can grant access to retailers or whoever. Go and see if this fits your requirements. So you shift this whole effort of indicating that you comply to the standards from farm level to the retail level. And I think that's a very necessary shift.
I think there's something else there, and you kind of touched on it earlier. Um, skirted up against it. I think it is really important that we start to facilitate and enable self-reporting capacities, whether it's on
Yeah.
food producers, retailers, even on the consumer side, trying to track end of life and waste management in the food value chain. There's so much possibility for food waste as biofuel or biofuel generation, and being able to track that and facilitate that and enable secure supply, like feedstock supply chains at local level. I think this is there's so much capability and possibility there in terms of networking and making simple this idea of transparent data sharing. It's a very, very empowering model, and we need to enable, well, I see it in Ireland, the need to enable farmers to self-report environmental impact data. There are not enough environmental auditors in the world to go and measure these things. We need to empower producers who are custodians of the land in many, many cases to report on some of these things. We have capacities to crowdsource and create autonomous oversight, maybe through satellite imaging or near Earth imaging or even drone imagery, and sort of inferred data analyses that we can do quite cheaply now using computer vision and various different things. We just need to empower that aspect. And I think that makes that's very important. And something that Pedro said earlier on, it's sort of implied that we can't trust human users to input data, but we will automatically trust aggregated sensor data. I mean, those network arrays are pretty vulnerable, like cybersecurity is a big issue in IoT systems. And if we're going to um, validate assurance pathways through aggregated sensor data, we also need to have standards around cybersecurity and those other aspects that make that kind of data uh, provable and trustable too. That's not as simple either. So what we
Or
try
that's
and do
the
is to combine these different ways.
Yeah, but that's the benefit of blockchain, that you cannot alter the data, or there's a tracking of the data.
Yeah, it's an immutable
Yeah.
thing, but I mean, so what? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
a human
I do believe
user.
that.
I enter some wrong data, or there's some faulty sensor array, and that, autonomously enters some faulty data, and now you've got a blockchain with faulty data in it.
Yeah, but I think mistakes happen, and that's a
Yeah,
problem that's easier to live with than people changing the values or committing food fraud by intent.
yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I have a blockchain company. I mean, I'm pretty invested in that as a solution.
Yeah, and coming back to what you guys said before, that the industry does not need to change the way they sell their products. I agree. I think that there's only basically two ways to change it: consumer demand or by regulation. That regulation demands that you have to be transparent and everything has to be online and etc. And regarding the remark that Fiona said about the lack of auditors, at this point, I'm guessing this is an auditor-based technology. Like people go audit and confirm that what the farmers reported is in fact correct. Will you
Well,
think that?
well, the technology can really help auditors to gain reach. But the thing is, having worked with the SGS for more than 10 years, they're very non-innovative companies because they have a great business model. They have no incentive to digitize. because their growth is pretty autonomous, because there is enough to audit. And I mean, we are still, interesting is that in Juicy Chain, there is an auditing company that is now entering the board of Juicy Chain, which makes me very happy, because then finally they realize, like, hey, maybe we should digitize our services a bit more. And the power of blockchain then becomes super attractive, because if an auditor can sign off stuff from a laptop at whatever place, that will make things so much more scalable.
Mhm.
So the whole auditing industry really needs to innovate, and in my experience is very behind.
Yeah, I fully agree. I fully
Do
agree
you
with
think
Yeah.
that we'll reach a point where the auditing industry will not be needed? That you can just immediately, that the sensors, chips, GPS, whatever, can be such a low price
No.
that consumers can, farmers can have them and directly upload their data to the blockchain?
Well, that will happen, but we will always need auditors, because understanding agricultural data, I don't see AI taking this over. This will have to be a combination with human and machine. So we will always need auditors, but the way they're doing their job now is highly outdated. I don't know if we have any auditors in the group.
I don't think so, but I agree with you. I think that they will always be needed in a way. Maybe but for sure the way they were working, it should be different. You know, they should
Yeah.
innovate. I mean, there should be some innovation on that, but you know, there should be a way to bulletproof that the sensors we are using are working correctly. And I also heard some, I mean, a lot lately about the standardization of the blockchain itself. No, that you can really prove somehow that yeah is yeah is also working correctly and so on. So it's,
I think
I think it should be some collaboration in that sense. Yes, in a way. Fiona.
100%. And there's two other issues that I would just raise in that point. First of all, in the terms of agriculture, climate change is a significant change factor. So
Yeah.
AI operates on past data, right? If the future is changing climate-wise, water quality, heat, temperature, all of those things, past data does not necessarily help. So you need to have human predictive models to understand, yeah, human elaborated co-creation models to hypothesize into the future. And we see this. Marieke, I should have sent you a message. I was in Amsterdam yesterday, and a few days before the expo was on there, TechX. Um,
No, Fiona.
Anyway, so I was on a panel with this guy, innovation guy from Philips, the big company there. And he was talking, so they have sold, or I hope this is not confidential information. He said it out loud, I think, hopefully. Anyways, they've sold all of their like Hoovers, all that kind of domestic stuff, anything like that. They've gone completely into the healthcare sector and health tech. And they are anticipating pretty much another pandemic winter, by the way. But they are very interestingly talking about looking at all of their models and their business models and predicting from the future. Anything from the past 2 years, it doesn't matter. That was so extraordinary in terms of supply chain impact, not just of the pandemic, but also, the big ship in the Suez Canal, all these different kind of things, so many factors. And now we're moving into certainly in Europe, another like a winter contending with conflict and like really contentious supply chain particularly for the agriculture sector, but there's many other aspects there as well. I don't, this is not my field, but in terms of geopolitics, I'm not thinking that we are foreseeing a closure of that in the near term. Like, I don't think people are predicting a closure or of that situation within maybe 12 months. So certainly the effects in supply chain will roll on for at least another 12 to 24 months. So any of the information we have does not make good information for predictive models. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with humans looking at history, looking at the industry archive, I suppose, and expected behaviors and hypothesizing into the future. So AI can only be built on past models, and anything out of that is highly speculative, which is great. And I work with really, really experimental AI researchers a lot, um, and particularly around soil science and growth analysis and making determinations about, cooperative decision taking in distributed co-ops, particularly in wine creation. Um, really, really, really interesting work, but not supply chain predictions. It's more crop management decisions. And what we're trying to do basically is valorize some of that work as energy saving, as quality protecting, as sustainability measured outputs. And what we're using you're putting existing external certification, like the ISO certification, for example, the rainforest certification, onto a blockchain. And what we're trying to do with our community in the CFC project is co-create new types of climate facing processes that can be certified. So we see ourselves as really experimental in co-creating new data products and services, which will ultimately, we hope, be taken up by those standardization bodies as something that is industry-led, co-created from both the fields, academia, research, business, that kind of thing. Very, very ecosystem approach to innovation and tackling very, very pressing issues. So I don't think our solution or our approach is the only approach. I think together with approaches like Marieke and her experience in that very systems thinking way, these together, we have our pickaxes coming at the rock face from slightly different angles, but I think we can learn and share from each other. And it's certainly the premise of open innovation. And by having that a very open approach to sharing knowledge, we can accelerate together, I think, the effectiveness of what it is we're trying to do. And I also have the pleasure, of course, of working, and I think Marta, with your INL, with the very, very innovative approaches in nanotechnology and in food science, and really, finding out some like totally amazing new stuff, and seeing it come together in the marketplace is a very satisfying realm to work in, and we should honor that, that the capacity of that. And when we find something new, really, really work to share, accelerate, make exponential the awareness around what some of those discoveries are, because maybe what our approach won't be the route to market for something, but maybe someone else or some other collective is in the position to achieve that. And through this kind of collaboration, we can, because our aims are common aims, that working in this climate facing or sustainability model can overcome some of the inertia that is derived from I would, sort of industry 2.0, where it's very centralized, siloed, and that is a context that we work in for sure. So we get to dance around the edges of it and invent things, but it's part of our job to make sure, like, innovation isn't innovation until it's in the market. If it's not really business wise sustainable, it's just another cool idea, and we need to push beyond that. And that's the trouble with research. Like with researchers, we go so far. We really need to make those connections with SME, with industry, and I think today you have a number of different ideas of how to go about that. But I think for each of us in that entrepreneurial way, wherever we are coming from, we utilize and maximize the benefits of our networks, our contacts, the maybe the geographic context that we are in, and push that out into the market, and let these solutions find their feet, because it's technology is not the solution. It's just a context. It's a pervasive computing or cloud computing, or this sort of decentralized or distributed paradigm in computing. It's a facilitator of global trade, I would say, of global communications. Ultimately, it's information technology. That's all it is. And information either works for business or humans or society or the world, or it doesn't. And we need to make those connections and empower people, industry, society, and we need to do that together for sure.
Yeah, fully agree, Fiona. Was very, very inspiring, actually. Thanks a lot. I don't know if there is any other question or comment to Marieke.
Marieke, I'm going to email you. Totally want you to
Yes.
give me something for if you can't stay to see this little presentation, let's set up a call. My sister's getting married and it's going to be a few days, so I'll be
Oh,
out of action from tonight for a few days. But early next week, let's do that. It would be super to
let's do
chat a
that.
little
Yeah,
bit
I
more
think we
about
should. I have an idea to collaborate on an event that's called Strike 2, which is in November 2, 3, and 4. And I think we should have a dairy track.
Oh, it would be
But
great.
right, yeah, there's a lot of interest, and we have a lot of good people to put in there
Yeah.
to really get some more scale in the dairy industry.
Yeah, and open that conversation. It's because
Yeah,
it's very localized, right?
super localized. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let's shake it up. Cool.
Great. Yes, exactly. Very nice meeting you all. Thank you for your time. I just dropped my LinkedIn in the chat if you want to connect. And have a great enjoy Fiona. But this is a guaranteed success. Speak
we
soon,
are
everybody.
we are very
Bye.
lucky to have you both. Bye. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot,
All
Marieke.
right. Bye.
Bye bye. Okay. So Fiona, whenever you're ready, you can start your.
All right, let me spin through this. There's quite a few slides here, but I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to, as I mentioned, this project that I'm working on, we called it Crowdfield Companion. It comes out of something that Marieke mentioned as well, using mobile solutions for farmers to basically digitize data at source. And the great idea about using mobiles is that farmers or those producers, the first mile in the food industry, is that they've got choice about what it is that they're gathering, what kind of data, what they want to say. We use imagery a lot, some voice messaging, that kind of thing, and we can aggregate the data, but we help them to create their own field data records, which is purely digitized, which that becomes an amazing resource, not just for them, but to technology in general and data sharing in general. Even from, we were talking earlier on about AI and what's important in AI, in data analysis from, for example, satellite imagery. AI needs to have this concept called ground truth. It needs to be validated, annotated data sets that explain exactly what a thing is in the landscape, or what seasonality might mean. So we need a lot of information, and if our farmers are co-creating or starting to make these field data records, we were hoping that we would be able to experiment with them around analyzing satellite data. In the meantime, this opportunity came up, so we repurposed the basic functionality of that blockchain app, which is essentially a wallet, which is it's a credential wallet. So it's their identifier. So anything that comes in through that app that is owned by that user is theirs. They create that data and they own it. And that sense of ownership extends in this project to their role in co-creating new data products and services. So this project here is funded through Next Generation Internet, through the Trueblow cascading funding, specifically about blockchain. And what we're seeking to do, it's a 10-month project. We are looking at blockchain-enabled reputation making in both smart farming and smart logistics, two ends of the food value chain, which are at the edge, poorly serviced generally by network connectivity. So we need to really tackle head on that issue around data integrity and assuring security of just the data pathways. We make data entry asynchronous, so it doesn't matter. Timeliness of writing is not important to the business model, but timestamping of the created record is an important aspect. So these are many of the different ways that we're looking at creating new types of data assurance pathways and modeling different types of reputation. So I've got some information here about the scope of the project and what its objectives were. So one key objective is to offer an onboarding methodology for smart farmers and smart logistics operators into this concept of reputation-based multi-party data. So if you are a smart logistics provider and you gather all your information and you own it and you can commercialize on it, you have your singular business model with the industry. But if you're going to provide some aspect of that, perhaps something that is climate facing around decisions taken that are energy saving on the high seas, you need a way to be able to share that outside of the bounds of your own organization. And so we use, I'm sure many of you know what NFTs are. They're non-fungible tokens, unique sets of attributes that are digitized and encapsulated in a single, like, non-fungible token. You could say it's like a certificate, or you can say it's like some kind of an assurance type thing. It's a summary report of whatever data was put together for that record. In blockchain systems, it's complicatedly called an NFT because it's not a fungible token. It's not a crypto token. It is non-fungible. It means it's completely unique. So you can have, Marta can have one certificate, I can have another certificate. The business interoperability is around standardization. What is the data that needs to be there? What are the measures? What are the classifications? What ontologies are used? How do we derive business semantic information from something like that? Not just, oh, I went for a walk and I saw 16 trees. Where did you see it? What kind of trees? What was the season? Where exactly were they? So if we're going to cross-reference this with satellite imagery, for example, can we extrapolate those entities in? What can we use that data for? So I guess it's a total nerd project. Oh, we're operating at the edge, farm to fork. We have this hypothesis because I'm a technologist, and we're coming together with technology people, researchers, other SMEs in the blockchain and AI kind of space, delivering in the agri-tech sector. So it's very experimental, it was very open, and we're providing very simple infrastructure, just this basically offline first mobile wallet, which allows participants, whether they're farmers or whether they're anybody else, to participate in an asynchronous way, to discover trusted information and to express some kind of, and respond and give feedback in some kind of way. So we're essentially publishing information. This is some info, so we'll be connecting with the Alastria public blockchain. It's the Spanish national blockchain. It too is experimental. It's part of it's trying to meet the objectives of the European Blockchain Partnership. We will be using a digital wallet, and we're using, sometimes people call them enterprise NFTs or physical NFTs. They might be, I don't like to say physical NFTs because actually we encapsulate aspects of process or business process, not just if that can be grounded in things like location and other kind of entity or item or object based data, but it's not necessarily like a digital twin of a product moving through a custodial supply chain. It's more abstract than that. So we're trying to facilitate land-backed field impact reporting, allowing, as I said before, farmers the capacity to self-report field data, to experiment with that. We're at it, like we understand that for farmers, sometimes, well, in Ireland, this was a public survey, found that something like 80% of farmers who expressed that they felt they were au fait with agri-tech 80% of those thought the coolest thing about agri-tech was that their tractor beeped when it reversed. So the expectations of utility from technology for actual farmers is very low. They see technology as something that's being imposed to audit them or to create quality pathways for the co-op, not necessarily for them. So this is quite a new concept. So we're starting with very low expectations, very simple interfaces, just a simple mobile wallet, offline first. You can use it anywhere. You can take your own notes. You can find out information. You can express your opinion. You can earn NFTs through the app, and as a participant in the system, you are accredited as a co-creator of the outcomes of the project. And should we get funding into the future, it is very likely that those early adopters or early participants will get some kind of reward, whether that's financial or whether it ends up being like a holiday in Catalonia or whatever it's going to be. We are very, very interested in this idea of motivating ecosystems, collaborating and co-creating and sharing the benefits, because that is the method or the way of accelerating adoption and accelerating the access to new ideas. There's no point in putting me, blockchain architect or software engineer, into a vineyard. It'll take me years to understand the problems, let alone identify solutions that I can deliver. But if we are working together, we have this really, really accelerated way of using design thinking and other aspects to generate solutions. So smart farming, smart logistics. I'm going to show you a little bit more of how we're doing it. So we're offering our project partners the ability to create a micro credential and a mini research project. You can do a field research project asking farmers to input field data, and they will earn an NFT at the end of that to say that they've completed it. So the NFT is we're linking with ISO at the moment to see if there's a way that we can explore a sort of like a CDP accreditation for. It will be an open innovation. It won't necessarily be in agriculture, but something about exposure or participation in a novel. If this is even new for ISO, there will be an emerging standard, technical standard around ecosystem innovation, and we're connecting there in a sort of information sharing way, and we are hoping that they will be able to give some sort of accreditation or some sort of acknowledgement of those early adopters or early participants in that scheme. Reputation making through engagement. So for the individuals participating, we look at the analytics. How frequent are they using it? Do they complete their task list? What types of engagement, and do they complete the whole task set? We give the NFTs. So there's a profile NFT or onboarding NFT, which gives you access to the system. You can do some research. The learn to earn micro credentials are essentially learning about our partners' projects, and instead of just giving a sort of business report or like a slide deck, we just turn it into an infographic and make it a little bit more readable on your mobile phone. And if you get to the end and answer a quiz, you can get an NFT. So we're testing really, rather than tell people what an NFT is and that you can assure or create some sort of validation of activity, we want to show how we can do that. So that's why we're doing it this way. And then at the end we have the engagement around what all the users or all the participants think about either the system or the projects or their own engagement, that kind of thing. And so we're exploring different ways of creating an in-system reputation for the quality of the information or the quality of the processes. There's a couple of different things here. This is the what's happening in the app. It's an in-app reputation making. There's home, this project levels, the peer reviews, the voting or the engagement or the feedback, and then we've got analytics, which relates to the levels, and that goes into the personalized NFTs, which is how we can aggregate or grade the feedback. who has completed an NFT in that project will probably know more about the project than somebody who just glanced through, some of the feedback. So this is the way we're going to do some of the, not this one, sorry. This is what the app will look like. It's very, very, very simple, very lightweight. It's just rating your knowledge, very simple ways of engaging with information. There's one other thing I wanted to show you, if that's okay. It's I think this is the one. Yeah, okay, so this is the rationale or the model for our Learn to Earn micro credentials, and these are some of our partners. So our project itself is writing a Learn to Earn micro credential about blockchain and DLT for mobile users, explaining what a wallet is and why we're making this the way we did. For us, it's important that it's offline first because we understand that not only farmers but also smart logistics decision takers, when they are on the high seas, these are very remote and can often be poorly connected environments, and we want to build this in a way that demonstrates functionality and utility in that offline first modality. So we're explaining that. My own company is presenting a Learn to Earn micro credential on consensus-based reputation making as a practice of open standards. So we can see that while we are collaborating to invent new kind of data products and services, that we are very engaged already at that local process of developing standards, industry standards, and that we are seeking to accelerate that knowledge through that open standardization process. I'm the co-chair of the European Standards Observatory blockchain strand, and I'm very active at both ISO, Sensenelec, and the National Standards Authority here in Ireland. So I'm very familiar and very connected with that process as an industry process, as an innovation process. And I really want to be able to bring the benefit of that experience to this co-creation with that, aspect, or the this ecosystem approach. I'm really interested to see if we can maximize and demonstrate the value there. Blue Pulse is one of our partners. They're a data analytics firm in smart logistics. They've got a very interesting, from existing operational data, they've worked out an algorithm to, in real time, facilitate decision taking in the high seas, particularly on the Pacific, where a lot of the transit moves very close to the equator. And when you have refrigerated reefers, containers, reefers are refrigerated containers. Refrigerated containers use a lot of energy because they have air exchange. You need the air to come in and go out. And if you're close to the equator, that air is very hot. So it takes a lot more energy to drop the temperature or keep that temperature constant. And that is very important for fresh food, for botanic, horticultural products like flowers, that kind of thing. And if you have, if that journey has a lot of refrigerated containers, which they might not, there aren't necessarily limits. It's the way that it happens. You can save something like 20% of your energy costs by shifting a couple of degrees more northerly. And you won't lose time. There's a sort of small additional cost or relatively small additional cost in fuel, but you save a lot just by shifting a couple of degrees north, because it requires less refrigeration energy. So things like that, making very smart decisions in the moment. The business problem that they have is convincing, there's a lot of decision makers there in that sector, like who commissions this software as a service, who puts in they probably have the sensors anyway, but how do we connect it? And then actually at the end of the day, it's the ship's captains who will make the decision whether or not to shift north, because it's an operational decision during the route. So it's interesting stakeholder analysis just on that project alone. But it's very interesting to contrast that with the next project, which is Wine Creators Project in Catalonia. And that's an introduction. This is very farmer facing. This is an introduction to regenerative viticulture and the soil microbiome. and soil microbiome recovery, particularly in Catalonia, looking at fungi and regenerative um, practices that will enhance the resilience of the soil in the face of climate change. So it has high ambitions, pretty speculative. We have a kind of a farmer champion, I would say, is a farm advisor, very passionate about this as a pathway to success. And he's really championing it and has brought together really advanced computational academics from the local university, from URV. And so the soil science side is one part, but that together with um, instead of having to analyze the soil 4 times a year, or every single field, or in fact because this, the landscape in Catalonia used to be under the sea. It's really, really diverse. Like one side of a field can be really very different to another side of the field. So you would have to actually analyze a lot of places in a single field. So what they are developing at the same time is a computer vision version that can validate inferred data from the way that the plants grow, how their leaves develop, and how the fruit develops through time to make inferences about soil quality. And so this is a longitudinal study um, uh, that is being field tested in a collaborative way. I would say it is parts of the project are funded and parts of the project aren't. And it's really quite experimental how it is coming together. But because they had this connection with the farmer champions and the farm advisors locally, they've really accelerated access into that farming community to test and trial these different methods. So it's quite a special project. I think it's really interesting to see how that mini ecosystem within our wider ecosystem is developing. And then Pandora Hub, I was mentioning that I was recently in Tarragona. So Pandora Hub is like an innovation incubator. It's set outside of Tarragona near Tivisa. It's about half an hour away from there. With the first iteration cycle was in a place called Practicante, really, really remote, very beautiful. Too many mosquitoes for my liking, but maybe I'll be going later on in winter, so hopefully they'll be dead by then. So they have brought together a number of very experimental, they're not all blockchain projects, they're various different things, agri-tech, food science, looking at circular economies. There's one lovely Swedish project there called Go Circular. Well, I think they say Go Circular, but it's spelled with a K. And they make lovely, we all got to test them, like skincare products out of coffee grounds, and they're developing a lot of different things for highly available bio feedstock and repurposing them in the skincare, healthcare, hair care kind of range of things. And there's a couple of blockchain projects there. There's Fund the World. Fund the World, they've bought over some rainforest in Peru, and you can buy to protect parts of the rainforest there, because there's competing avocado farming, palm oil farming, that kind of thing. It's high competition for the rainforest as land. So they bought it to protect it and are selling it on a blockchain. And I have to say their website is fantastic. If you like gaming, I go and see their website. It's called Fund the World. Really nice website. And then plastics. They're headquartered out of Ireland. They are based in Barcelona in Spain. They have developed a very nimble and nifty marketplace, NFT marketplace, to facilitate connection between plastic recovery and plastic recycling. So they've already created assurances for thousands and thousands of tons of plastics that have been removed from the sort of general waste and diverted towards recycling, plastics recycling. It's not the standard milk bottle type. It's the other PP5. It's the one that's more difficult to collect, and oftentimes recycling companies won't calibrate their machinery to facilitate that because they don't have enough assured feedstock delivery or feedstock supply. So this company, which is an offshoot of Nozama, which is a sustainability measurement company, it's a B2B kind of SaaS service company, that with the advances in the NFT marketplaces, they just saw an opportunity to really enhance a message and make a greater opportunity to facilitate and innovate this feedstock supply. So that's really a very simple but strong marketplace intervention, which is facilitating um, the gap in that's facilitating circular economies. So there's really diverse and really interesting things, and the Wine Creators is one of the projects there. And they'll be doing a big event at the end. I must let you know when it is, Marta, because it's going to be really interesting to see the outcomes of that as an innovation ecosystem as well. You know, bringing us all together. We're so diverse, and we were all so. I'm going to say overachieving. I'm going to celebrate our successes here. So we're all overachieving in these small and diverse ways, and to be able to share that is, you know, um, for anybody who's a scientist or anybody who simply cares and is aware that the what's happening with climate change and the pressure coming, you know, in the pretty near future, can feel overwhelming sometimes. And in these innovation ecosystems, particularly with that opportunity to meet and spend time together, it's really it's a really positive experience to listen and learn and to understand that there are so many people, so many projects, really not just trying but really succeeding in making a difference in their small ways, you know. And to accelerate that knowledge and accelerate through partnership and cooperation is very rewarding. It's a very rewarding practice. I'm not going to say it's super easy. Partnerships and collaboration, you know, that they can be testy and they can be um, difficult, particularly in a multilingual environment. It's not so much the language barrier because we can understand the words. It's actually the intention. You know, culturally speaking, our intentions are I don't mean our motivations and I don't mean hidden agendas. I just mean we mean and expect different things in a business context. And becoming familiar with that and acclimatizing yourself to that sort of degrees of uncertainty, it's a little leap, you know. And I see for scientists or for academics operating at that interface where you don't have control. You don't get to define the bounds of your project and anticipate all the deliverables and then, you know, get them to a greater or lesser extent. Sometimes crazy things happen. And those crazy things can be amazing opportunities or they can be devastating, Titanic sinking stuff, you know. But yeah, anyway, so that's where we are and what we're doing. We've got a few more. We've got. I would love to extend the invitation to anybody here. If you would like to join us in our journey, you would be able when we're ready. Yeah, cfchub.org. You can Google us there. I think you can sign up already. So you just declare your interest. And when we're ready, you can come along, you can observe, you can lurk, you can earn an NFT, you can participate or not as much as you want, and you can find out what we're doing. And we would be really interested. I mean, we want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, we're not trying to, we're publishing new kinds of information, climate facing. It's largely in the sort of agri-food value chain. I mean, plastics, you could say, isn't really, is it, isn't it? But I think in every single industry we're using plastic and we need to be responsible for what we do with that. So it's certainly adjacent, if not directly involved. So, okay, I'll stop talking. I'd love any questions or anything else.
Thank you very much, Fiona. That's really, really exciting and really hyperactive, I would say.
It's a bit hyperactive.
It's, I mean, so many interesting things that I wouldn't even know where to start. I will ask I mean, I know there is a lot of young people in the audience that could, I mean, could feel inspired about all these activities that you are performing. And really, I mean, as you know, I'm really interested in these
Yeah.
wine-related
So
projects with
one thing I
Tarragona.
would
So
say is it does sound like a lot, and it is a lot, because what we discover is that there's a lot happening.
yeah,
So initially, we had said we would facilitate somewhere between 6 and 10 partnerships. Okay, so we've already got 6. One of them, because we were in the Pandora hub, and then there's like 3 extra projects. I'm like, oh, so I, I mean, it's just not possible to really what we're hypothesis testing is this idea of reputation making. Okay, so we
yeah,
that our task is to measure that. So we participants in our system can earn and enhance their own reputation just through their engagements, complete a module, cast a vote, simple analytics, and those analytics go to you as a participant, right? They're in your
yeah.
profile, and you can see that, and you can,
Okay.
you can make something of it or not. And you can make your profile associated with your name or not. You can be anonymous, or you can be marked up. You know, it's complete. We're really interested in showing and telling the simplicity and the power of this concept of self-sovereign identity management. So, it's an introduction demonstration of what self-sovereign identity wallets can do in a business context. That's what our task is, to show that. We want to share climate facing, climate positive in industry projects. We have partnered with academics, with businesses, with SMEs, with collectives. As we are doing that, we're meeting more and more people who have great projects that are interesting to share. So rather than not share them, we're like the Pandora Hub, we're combined, rather than have 3 extra projects, we're just highlighting the Pandora Hub as a local initiative, bringing technologists, futurologists, uh, climate facing thinkers together in a local area, and what that, does that mean something for that area? Like, I mean, that's an interesting context as well. So it's ecosystems within ecosystems. So how can we share these kind of um, initiatives without overwhelming a potential participant? So it's a bit of a task. It's a communications task. Um, only you can tell us if we succeed. I mean, really. So that's our job here. And there are many initiatives, and we are happy to share them. I think it is a positive thing to come to learn. There are so many ways of hacking away at this problem, and they are simultaneous, and that they are beneficial, and that there is room, definitely room for all of them. And if we can accelerate understanding, I guess amongst um, business thinkers or business actors or industry. I mean, these are solutions in an industry context. It's not really about going to the shop and buying
Yeah,
organic. We can do that already, right? This is more about facilitating and demonstrating climate positive processes through industry, through agriculture, and then through, relatedly, in the supply chain, smart logistics. Uh, so what we have found is that on the farmer side, they like to be able to switch up. When you go and tell farmers
yeah,
what they could do, they're looking for the holes, or they're looking for, yeah, I relate to that, I don't relate to that. But they sort of switch that critical thing off if you go, and another thing we're doing is with smart logistics. Here's someone else's business, completely different to yours, but it's how your cheese gets to the marketplace. And they listen to what those problems are, and they see technology being deployed in that environment, and they're
They can
less,
relate more,
they
right?
can relate, but they're less emotionally attached. They're
Yeah.
not feeling observed, right? they
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are
yeah,
doing
yeah.
the
Okay.
observing, and that experience is helpful in this context of change or digital transformation. You know,
Yeah.
it is a digital divide uh, context if we're bringing farmers right into the heart of it, as not to teach them, but as co-creators and collaborators. And if I was in Barcelona yesterday, I was also in Amsterdam yesterday, but I'm
How did you
speaking.
manage?
I can't even believe I'm back in Dublin, to be honest. So we were at the Cool Logistics Business Industry Expo in the World Trade Center in Barcelona, and we had a panel discussion. It was all about the digital divide. Geneviève Lavelle from AgriLedger, they're based out of Haiti and the Caribbean, funded by the World Bank, and
Okay.
they do traceability solutions in that field. And they are co-leads on the CRC project with my company. So for them, that's a first foray into European funded R&D kind of stuff, because they've mainly been in the US and that kind of stuff. So that's a different context for them. We had URV, Vladimir Balin, who's the professor of, he's the data scientist doing the computer vision stuff in the vineyards. He was talking, showing and telling his dashboard and visualizations. And we also had a wine tasting from Augustus Forum, which is
Oh,
an
nice.
artisan wine producing collective. They have their own vineyards, but they also work with small producers very locally, and they are providing, they have about 14 different vintages, or 14 different products that they elaborate every year. They produce about 92,000 bottles, I think, in a single year across a lot of different produce. I mean, they're, they're, some of them are very small. They might have only 700 bottles, but very, very high quality. And they are maximizing, they have very diverse soils there, and they
Mm-hmm.
are maximizing the output by growing different grapes in different parts of their vineyards, and really, really experimenting at a micro local level, you know. And they export to 40 different countries,
Wow.
and
That's
they
really nice.
make their, they tell the story of what they are doing in lots of different languages, and are very passionate about creating super contemporary wines in innovative ways that are, you know, conveying that excitement to their customers and their consumers right across the world. They also produce vinegars, and they're actually more famous for their vinegars than they are for their wines. They're the featured vinegar in MasterChef in Australia. There's a number of different chefs that sort of are influencers for them, and that for the past 15 years they've been providing vinegar to um, the Nobel Peace Prize meal. They're the
Wow.
selected vinegar producer. We had a tour of that thing you didn't come to, Martha. We did a
Yes.
tour, and we
So
got to
sorry.
test
Really,
their
I
vinegars. Oh my God, it's
that's so
really lovely. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
quite a different process to Modena vinegars.
Yeah.
They don't boil the must. They have a different process, so it doesn't. It tastes quite different, and it doesn't, you know, the way balsamic vinegar can kind of gel, it kind of gets into a
Yes, yes, yes,
gel.
yes, yes, yes.
Theirs doesn't do that, because it's made from this different product. They don't think that's a bad
It's
thing.
more
They're just
liquid,
saying,
let's say, right? Isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
very interesting how they do it, and the
Amazing.
flavors are very modern. You know, they're a little different. They're, you know, you could, and of course they're always bringing out the aspect of the how would you say, the micronutrients, I suppose, in the
Yeah.
soil, the diversity that originates from the soil. They're really leveraging that as an enhancing factor for both flavor, nutrition, and value, quality and
Yeah.
value. really,
That's
really
really great.
interesting. Oh,
Yeah,
and
and it
oh
looks
my
like
God, it was so great to be at the conference yesterday and to be able to finish it with wine tasting. There was a red, a rosé, and a white.
well, yesterday the participant of the summer school, they have the opportunity to visit a winery that is relatively close to INL, and I think it was a great experience. I could not join myself, and I was so disappointed that I could not join,
Yeah,
but I think it
it's
was
really
fantastic as well.
interesting to see it.
Yeah,
It's a lovely way to understand that whole process because I think a lot of
yeah,
vineyards, well, certainly the ones that do tours are making the wine as well. So you get that whole, they're
yes, the
bottling it and everything.
whole,
So you get the whole journey.
and that's so
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I had a question related to that, and then I will give. I mean, because I have a lot of questions, but I would like that if somebody in the audience has as well some questions too. But I have a specific question that I was thinking, during this time, because I mean, you guys have worked with the wine industry or are working with the wine industry, but you also have experience with the dairy industry, and there, I mean, and also coming from a region that is
So different. So
producer
different.
of I mean, is a is a strong producer of dairy products and milk and cheeses and so on and so forth. They are really different, really. I mean, especially because their income is different. Of course, is
But even their process. So,
yeah,
one grape growing, there is a harvest. There
yeah,
is no harvest. There's
yeah,
year-round grassland management for in dairy farming or goat farming or sheep farming.
yeah,
Um, and so things like peripheral habitat management become more vital aspects, I think, on the grassland side. We're also very temperate climate. We Ireland was not under the sea; it was under ice. So we have glacial landscape, which means that the valleys tend to be very fertile. There's a diagonal line across Ireland, and if you're on the east of that, you have
yeah,
fertile land, and if you're on the west of that, you don't. So it's yeah. I mean, half the land, half the country is more or less marginal land, I would say. And it's very, very difficult land management practices. So it's a bit like having vineyards on the side of a hill. It's something, there's a lot of abandonment, that kind of thing. So that those rural realities,
yeah,
depopulation, aging population, all that kind of
yeah,
stuff is a real thing. And then if like the problems in Catalonia, for example, just driving through Catalonia over the past few days, like with my friends who are very engaged there. The farm advisor Albert Domingo is his name, from the Generalitat, I suppose you call it, in Tarragona, talking about forestry there and the risks of big devastating fires. And because there are no breaks and the managed land is disappearing, particularly in those more difficult areas, when the region was more populous,
yeah,
there were vineyards, in terraces going up the mountainsides, and that
that,
acted as a kind of a fire break.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And,
yeah,
and, and also dead wood is no longer foraged for heat in domestic or even industrial use. And so it's
yeah.
a tinderbox.
Yeah, we have a huge problem here in Portugal and in Galicia in the northwest of Spain with fires as well, and
Yeah,
it's because of this.
particularly this summer, there
Yeah,
was some devastating fires. That's
mm,
not well. So I'm only quoting Albert, whom I trust actually quite a bit. Yeah, he said he knows people who are, I guess, theorists. I mean, can you say like a fire theory person? Like there will be a devastating fire, and they won't be. It cannot be stopped because once it starts,
yeah,
it will rage and it will be devastating, and it's only a matter of time. You know, um, so I don't know what it means. I mean, rural depopulation or the forest is so big. Is 60%, I think, of Catalonia is kind of natural forest. It's virtually unmanaged. I mean, bits at the edge maybe are managed, but you can't even
yeah,
get in there.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and it there's no way really to control it, and because of land abandonment, the forest is just growing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these are these will be environmental issues for sure. I mean, a devastating. We've already seen it this summer. Those really unmanageable fires, and the devastation that they cause
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
terrifying. You
It's
know.
terrifying. Yes.
Anyway, we can't solve this. I don't know. We can't solve everything, but it's just when we start to think so I'm a software provider, right? I'm behind my computer. That's what I do. And then I get this chance to go and visit the real world. And you start to understand so much more about the complexity of stakeholder problems. I have a
Yeah.
small business. We're meant to think about, what's the problem for the user? What's the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And I think the conclusion that I came to more recently, um, just about what is blockchain trying to solve. I think it is about trusted information, and it's about facilitating collaboration. It's about providing scaffolding for research, so that the blockchain bit is the most boring part. At that event yesterday, the wine tasting, or what we can do with computer vision, I think that's so fascinating. And what blockchain is enabling essentially is an infrastructure for virtual communities and information sharing, and valorizing the output of that work. That's, to me, I am so happy. I feel like I'm doing a public service, you know,
No,
for
it's
real
really rewarding when you
innovative peoples.
see, yeah,
Yeah,
when you see the possibilities and so on of things that you are doing is so rewarding, right? And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that, yeah, blockchain has really
No,
a say
it's
here, and a
yeah,
future and
and
so on.
it's slowly but surely, definitely, I'm seeing less. People always say about new technology, oh, it's a technology in search of a problem, or it's a solution in search of a problem. But the more industry events that we go to, that,
Yeah.
I mean, people ask those kind of questions, but actually, if you were going to do a mobile first digital marketing campaign, would you go to the board and start telling them how a mobile phone works? No.
No.
This is where people are. This is how they're consuming information. It's on a mobile phone. We are a trusted, INL is a trusted source of information, and we want to share our information mobile first through social media. Nobody would even question that.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
don't need to explain the technology all the time. We need to trust that it works, and
yeah.
we need cybersecurity protocols to keep up with the cybersecurity nefarious people. um, and that sort of thing. We need to test and prove, uh, uh, how can I say, like cooperative multi-party governance. That's essentially what blockchain enables. We need to test that and prove that. And if we can, right now, because in 2022, I get to test that on projects that are climate facing, and that is very rewarding, to be able to do that. Because
Yeah.
originally, honestly, when I started, I thought I was going to be working in fast fashion. Oh, look, there's a silver sneakers at Tokyo Fashion Week, and here's an NFT. That was like back in 2017. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. But
Yeah.
I live in Ireland. There is no fashion industry to speak of. We are a nation of fashion consumers and not producers. And I had children, I was married, I wasn't going to move. So yeah, I started working in food.
I know you're moving a lot.
And now I'm moving a lot, I mean, it's great. Listen,
It
my
is nice. It is
children
nice.
are going to be able to do an exchange in Tarragona, because Albert wants to send his kids to school here for a year. So I could send my children there in the summer. He put me up in his mom's house. Oh my God, we're great friends now. So yeah, I mean, when you get to meet really amazing people, you get to make really amazing friends, and you get to enhance those networks and those communities, and that lived experience, because technology is only for it should only be, and we should demand that it is only for the enhancement of our experience of our of life, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that it
Yeah. Yeah.
should make our family lives better and easier. It should make the health of the planet a more assured thing, you know, and we need to be able to do that with trust and understanding. It's an information technology, so that information for whom? For human brains. Humans can only take in information as a sensory experience, you know. We can taste things, smell things, see things, hear things. See things, we can read them. We can have these complicated experiences, like through maybe through film or video or you know, augmented reality or virtual reality. These things are, we are moving more towards a world that is informing us in those complicated ways. But I'm not sure that in my lifetime I'm really going to see the the full ubiquitous adoption of, you know, haptic engagement. And I'm not even sure it's fully healthy. I mean, have you used Oculus Rift or anything like that? It's quite dizzying.
Yes,
It's
it's a bit
also,
weird.
it's very fascinating, but it's
Yes, it's
like
amazing. Yeah.
24/7 in
No,
that sort of environment. It would be you'd need
it will be
probably to
Matrix.
go into
The Matrix.
training for that. I mean, you would need to be a
Yeah.
sort of like digital athlete or something
Yeah.
to be able to deal with that, because it's not a natural experience. So the world we're
Yeah.
moving forward into is, the world is there, it's a physical reality. We interpret the world through our senses, and so reality has always been hybrid. It has always been how we imagine it and how we understand it to be, and how we anticipate it will be. We seek to strive and to make something better or worse or whatever. So reality is constructed in our minds, and
Yeah.
my version of reality is probably aligned with yours, Marta, but it's probably not exactly the same. And now we have all of these. We are technologically enabled to deliver more insights, more information, and more distraction into our version of reality. And how do we maximize that, you know, to what end? And if it is not to enhance the lived experience for ourselves, for our families, for our society, for the planet, you know, for our pets, for our you know, for our trees, for you know, like we are part of an ecosystem. You can't take humans out and away from all of that. You know, we see
Yeah.
colony
Absolutely.
collapse for bees, the impact that has on food and the green world around us. We can't survive in that world. We have to understand ourselves as part of that
As part of
ecosystem.
that, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. It's somebody else have a question. Otherwise, Fiona and I could stay here for hours, I think, talking with each other. But maybe somebody else has a question or a comment or wants to add something. Otherwise, we will continue like this for a while, I guess.
Please do. Tell me what your favorite film is that tackles these things. My favorite one is My Neighbor Totoro. Have
Oh,
you seen
okay.
that? Oh, it's
No,
beautiful kids movie.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Japanese.
I want to see that one. Yes,
It's
this is one of
amazing.
the, yeah, it's a very good one. Yeah. Helena, she's saying, yeah. You like it as well?
My Neighbor
Maybe?
Totoro, yeah. Avatar is pretty good as well. It's
Yeah.
quite
Yeah,
Helena.
I like that movie.
Wally is pretty good.
What is
That
good? Yeah.
the kids movies are kind of better. I think better at this stuff.
Yeah, there are very nice movies for kids. There are also the bad ones, but they are very, very nice ones for kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
very inspiring ones. Maybe another question for myself, coming back more in the technical side.
Yeah.
I know you are quite involved with standards, standardization, and so on. In which status are we now? I mean, maybe you can give some information. In which is the status of standardization of blockchain for the agro-food?
So very interesting. So I mainly work on the blockchain side of it.
Yeah,
I
sure.
did an analysis recently, and it's part of a technical report published out of ISO TC 307, which is about subject and object identifiers for use in blockchain system design. and I wrote a whole section on agri-food and
Mm-hmm.
existing industry kind of ontologies or registers of classification and categorization that are commonly used in industry. Because what we would often see is that blockchain companies are, oh, I'm going to fix the food supply chain, and it's going to, I say, well, what well, what reference points are you using? Oh, you just, you get a product and you stick a barcode on it, or you stick a QR code on it. And I said, well, have you talked to those food producers or those food providers? Because, real estate on a label is an important aspect, and sometimes they already have a QR code there and they've got a barcode, and now you want to stick another one on. And do you know what that does at point of sale if you have 3 different codes that the scanner can read? It slows things down a lot. We're talking seconds, but those seconds add up, right? So what does it mean, and what value does it add, really, to give that kind of information? um, and they're not connecting well. So and I say this as a software engineer, I would say kind of 10 years ago, when people asked us to build things, we were able to name everything, all the classes, all the entities, all the objects. We could name everything. We designed the system the way that we understood that business to work, or that business domain to work. And we really didn't have to look at business interoperability standards, because because I guess those systems were being built for the early adopters. They were maybe in-house systems for a single supermarket or something like that, and they could name their products whatever they were going to name them, or they used GS1 systems. And so that would be quite common to connect with GS1 classification. But apart from that, if you're talking about regulated aspects of food industry, like European standardized naming, which are all freely available and already translated into all these different languages, I'm telling you now, software developers and software engineers, we're not going anywhere near that stuff, which probably, possibly could have provided a foundation for future service development. Whereas instead, you're iterating proof of concepts into a silo, because they're never enabled for the future.
Yeah.
We're never fully informed. And so, what we're in the standardization work that we're doing, we're publishing technical standards. Like there's the reference architecture, really, really useful document. There are standards for terminologies, ontologies. There's technical standards coming up for smart contracts. There's security technical standards as well, of course. And if you're talking about handling of currency or digital currency, all of the financial standards apply. You know, uh, they are not completely divorced from existing business realities, even if digital currencies or cryptocurrencies are in a in a in a pre-regulated or uh, complexly regulated status globally. So some jurisdictions have regulated for or against cryptocurrencies, and others haven't. So there's this weird phenomenon now where we have these global systems that facilitate global trade completely separately to the central banking system, completely tokenized. And they are extra too. And you can't shut down the Bitcoin network. You can't shut down the Ethereum network. They exist. Nobody can stop you building your business there. And and I don't think it's a bad thing that your business can be there. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to put your regulated business on there, like as a DeFi service provider or as an agri-food SaaS service provider, you need your business to meet real world compliance objectives. Otherwise, you are going to get in trouble and your customers are going to get in trouble. So, and of course, we're talking about sustainability. Business sustainability is key to all of that. You can't build services that you're going to leave people in the lurch in 2 years' time. Yeah, you know, your customers are your collaborators. You're building systems. You're solving their problems. You can't leave them. You shouldn't leave them in the lurch. You know, you need to work with them to build out solutions. Agri-food, massively, massively regulated.
Yeah.
For health reasons, for food security reasons, you know, for a variety of different reasons. Food
Mhm.
fraud amongst them. In
Yeah.
Europe, I think we're
Fair
quite lucky.
market and these type of things as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we need to be cognizant of that. So I would say in the standardization world, we are coming together. There's like a convergence of business
Yes, I can imagine. No.
interoperability, you
Yeah.
know. And similarly, we see on the liaison to the GIS technical committee. GIS is Geographic Information Systems, and I see the elaboration of existing classification systems there, which are emerging in order to facilitate enhanced AI analysis. So we're looking
Mhm.
at more granular descriptions of land cover classification, land use classification, that kind of thing. So uh, uh, we are able to understand, instead of me and Marta saying, oh, we're going to do a satellite project, we're going to analyze, yeah, I'm going to analyze dairy farms, she's going to analyze vineyards, we're going to make up the classification. So our systems are never able to talk to each other.
Yes, yes,
Whereas
yes,
if
yes.
we use these emerging classifications coming defined by the GIS technical committee, we know that into the future somebody else is doing the hard work of that business
Mhm.
interoperability. And we're making our processes more sustainable by encompassing those kind of industry standards and business realities, which the technical side, you know, it takes a long time to become an engineer, it takes a long time to become a food scientist. You know, we can't know everything. No, we just can't know everything.
Yeah.
Our task now is to be expert in what we do and be able
Understand
to
a bit of,
communicate.
yeah,
Well,
to
be able
communicate.
to
Exactly.
communicate and collaborate.
Yeah.
That's our
Yeah.
jobs, I
That's
think, at every
the,
point.
yeah, yes, that's, yeah. Okay, Fiona. I see we are coming to the end of the session.
This is my last piece of work before my days off for my sister's wedding. So you got all of my waffle. I hope I haven't bored you all to death.
No, for me is always very interesting. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining this session, and
It's
thanks
a
a lot
pleasure.
for your time. And
Just
thank
looking
you.
at your background there,
Yes,
I can't remember how to say it. Is it Wageningen? The
Wageningen.
German,
Yeah,
yeah. They're
from Netherlands. Yes. Yeah.
okay. They are part of the Trublo project as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
they're
are
one of
involved.
the
I mean, they are a super
everywhere.
big university related with agro-food
Yeah,
applications and so on. They
we
are.
should totally leverage them. We say, they know
Mm,
everything, Marta.
yes.
They know everything. What are they going to do for us? Let's find out.
Yes. Okay. Thanks a lot, Fiona, and thanks a lot for all the people that has attended the sessions as well. There were some technical problems at the beginning, but I think we can solve it. I was checking, and we had in some moments 21 participants, so this is really nice. And yeah, thanks a lot, and talk to you soon. I will definitely have a look at this of your web page that you were suggesting. This
Yeah, and
cfc.com, right? Yeah.
it's cfchub.org.
Okay.
I and I'll send you a link, and
Okay. Perfect.
if it's okay,
Fantastic.
you might share it with some of the people who are here today, and
Yeah, I
you can
think they will be
browse and
interested.
experience and contribute when the time comes.
Okay.
Download your wallet, get some NFTs.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Ciao.